Good morning, comrades. Time for the Thursday episode of this week's Good Morning Comrade. Today in the studio we have Robert and Aaron. How y'all doing?
We're doing great.
It's fantastic.
How are you, Jeff?
I'm just beautiful. Just absolutely perfect. Never better. You can listen to the show on WHIVLP New Orleans on Tuesdays. We can also check us out most Mondays running up to the election, probably through about November. We have a couple big interviews coming up. We have Ashanta Wyatt coming up this Monday. She's running for the Bessie board in District 2. After that, who knows? You want to be a guest on the live show on Monday?
Come on.
Let us know.
Also, we should say when we say election in October and November, we mean Louisiana.
State primary. The Louisiana State primary is October 12th. And then that includes the governor's election, statewide elections, and the way we do it in Louisiana, for those who listen to are not here, we do a nonpartisan primary sort of situation. So it's like everybody runs in the same primary, and if nobody gets 50%, then it's like the top two go to a runoff. So it's really. It's a weird way to do it, but I guess it's so. I don't know.
We vote a lot here in Louisiana. It's because we love democracy. It's written in the Constitution of Louisiana that we have to vote at least once a month.
Democracy fucks, okay, folks. Democracy definitely fucks.
It does. And shout out to Warren Easton High School. That's my polling location. So I'm there.
Yeah, that is where
every few months. I just wander my little self in, and I
Friend
talk to a couple of
there.
little old ladies who can't ever find my name on the list. They do eventually, every time. And then I vote for the one single thing we have on the ballot at any given time. Because every time we have something, we have just a full separate election.
That's how we do it.
That's
exactly how we rock.
The guy who says it by my place, which is at Delta Playground in Metairie, he always says, Barrow. And my last name's pronounced Barrow. He always gets it wrong, and everybody says my last name wrong, but he says it specifically wrong, and he says it with like a specifically like blah kind of demeanor.
Yeah, my middle name is a last name. It's my grandmother's maiden name, and it's not like super unusual, but it's not like a normal middle name, and it is. Oh, those ladies do not really know what to do with me. It's Marsh.
Marsh.
Yeah, so it's Erin Marsh Huggins.
Really, if you just went by Marsh, you could basically be a local.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I like it a lot, but it's like the fact that is not my actual last name is very confusing to many bureaucrats and volunteer poll workers.
Yeah, my middle name's Oswald. Don't tell any of my students because that's one of the two things that I keep from them. I don't ever tell them. I don't ever tell them my middle name, even though one class found it because they read my diploma, which I had posted. And then the other thing I don't ever tell them is my age. I don't ever tell them how old I am.
What are you afraid they're going to do with this information?
I'm not scared of what they're going to do with the information. I just like to have something that they don't have.
I never tell my clients my age because I feel like I'm a little too young to have. My clients are usually a lot older than me, and I feel like it's weird to have. Like I know when I'm looking for a therapist, I always look for someone who's like older than me. It's like a weird block I have that I'm like, oh, if you're my age, you can't possibly be good.
I want a therapist that's good, that's smart, and old.
Yeah, well, I want them to have been in the business for like 20 years because my problems are very unique, and I need someone who's good at their job because I am a very special little snowflake. Mm-hmm. And you can't possibly have heard all the stuff I'm going through. So, they need to be good at their job.
Oh, I've heard it all.
Speaking of
40-year therapist.
Speaking of jobs, we're trying to get some money so we can get the pod in front of more people. Make sure you check us out on Patreon. I'm gonna try to start putting links to our Patreon in the podcast notes and all over our Facebook. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Obviously, Twitter's at Comrade. No, it's
at Comrade Morning.
At Comrade Morning. It's always backwards because Morning Comrade's already taken.
Everything else is at Good Morning Comrade.
But yeah, support us on Twitter. On Twitter. Support us all those places. Support us on Patreon.
Follow, subscribe, hit the bell, follow on Patreon.
We've got a 2 tiers right now. We've got a $1 tier, and we also have just like $1 will help us pay for advertising. Seriously, $1 a month is huge. $6 will get you a koozie when we get them
eventually.
All in. Yeah, eventually. We're just honestly waiting for enough people so we can just like not have. I don't want to order a bunch of koozies.
How many do we need?
And have,
Maybe that would be.
I think we have. Well, it gets cheaper the more we order.
Right.
So I want to have at least like. I want to have honestly at least 50 before we make our first order.
Okay. Cool.
So pressure's on, listeners.
Yeah. So yeah, you can give $6 a month. That'd be super great. Again, this money is not being used at this point. Hopefully,
we're paying for hosting and gear right now. I mean, we're getting new mics. I keep spilling beer on every board we get. We're on our 12th board right now.
Right, but so yeah, it's not being used for.
Robert didn't laugh because it's very triggering for him.
It's not funny. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's not funny at all.
That makes it funnier.
But yeah, so if y'all could do that, it would really, really be awesome. Also, when you share the podcast, that is probably honestly when you just click share on your favorite social media, that honestly does more for us than Patreon.
Smash all the buttons, folks.
We really appreciate that.
I mean, what are you going to do? Share a New York Times article?
Well, you can't
give money to the New York Times. No, don't do that. Give it to Good Morning Comrade.
Yeah, yeah. Think about it. So it pays for our VPN.
The Washington Post is just giving Jeff Bezos more money. He's gonna be fine. They should include that with Prime anyway.
Well, Prime and Twitch and Whole Foods. My Whole Foods membership for food. Hey, we got that. We got one of those food boxes the other day. Aaron got one because we figured it'd be more economical.
One? HelloFresh.
How did you feel about that? This is not an ad for HelloFresh. We're not being sponsored.
So the reason we got it is because I had a deal on Groupon where it was 2 weeks for $16, and I felt like that was a good amount of money to spend on groceries. I also am so bad at domestic things. I hate grocery shopping. I hate cooking.
You got all this soap.
Oh yeah. So I had a almost breakdown in I mean, that's a story for a different day. I had a breakdown in Costco today because I couldn't find hand soap, which is essentially why I need to have my groceries delivered to my house because otherwise I will not eat. So Robert, and when I say we, I mean Robert made me a quesadilla because
that was the meal plan.
I don't cook. It was delicious but silly.
But yeah, I feel like I felt like we've done this.
Oh, quesadillas are not silly.
It was so funny.
Fresh was silly.
It was so funny opening a little bag and it comes in this box filled with ice, and so everything was so much fresh.
Packaging.
And
but you can recycle it.
So we went through. So I'm opening all this stuff, and there's like one little like cutesy tomato, and there's like 2 tortillas, and this weird little box of beans. And it was just like, it was laughable. I felt like, I'm opening my nutritional ration for the day. I felt like it's like, honestly, this is not even trying to be a
Why don't they just give you
this
pellets?
This is Nutrisystem that you have to cook. Because that's like
it was good. It was. Have you ever been on Nutrisystem?
I think my mom has.
Like as a woman who's been on all of those.
Yeah,
like,
but you don't have to cook with Nutrisystem.
But it is like straight cardboard. It is not delightful.
Right.
I mean, this is basically like the step between like towards the pellet or like
no. It feels like I was joking with Aaron. I feel like this is the boomer meme of this is the only thing that's going to be allowed when AOC becomes empress.
What it is, America. It's for
people. One tomato ration a week, two tortillas. That's all you get in your 2-family household. This is your government.
At least it's not
ration.
Food Lines. At least you have.
So it was good. I mean,
it's essentially like it gives you it's all the ingredients plus a recipe card. It's like essentially for the people who never really got into the habit of like cooking for themselves and like don't really like. Okay, so I hate food prep. Like I hate grocery shopping. I never have my timing down right when I'm trying to cook. Like I never have the right amount of ingredients. Like the kitchen always looks like a nightmare when I'm done. Like honestly, this was great because it was like already pre-portioned and it just was better, but I'm a 32-year-old person, and I was like, and I couldn't handle just making quesadillas.
I feel like you've actually made like some better quesadillas than that because you use cilantro. There was no cilantro, and that's another thing. Like I felt like it's for the most like vanilla. I'll just say it's like for the like mayonnaise loving white people because it's like,
all right,
it was just very like, where's the cilantro? Like, where's anything that's gonna make this?
There was poblano peppers in there.
The poblano peppers are weak though.
Oh my god,
they were good when they were cooked, but they're like they're super weak. Like it's not like they put like a habanero in there or anything. It was just
check out our Instagram because we have live during the show a cat eating a pizza.
No, it was good. I don't want to. It was good, and I think for as far as like. We live in New Orleans. We both have cars. We can get to the grocery store fairly easily. This does like alleviate time, but I totally get it if you're like living in New York or something like that, where it's like super hard to get groceries. Like it's cheaper to eat out.
I get it for myself because I go to the grocery store multiple times a week with clients, and if I have to go to another grocery store one more time, it's just not great for my mental health. And honestly, so I'm not going to do. I don't think this specific subscription is right, like for what we need, but like I'm definitely getting groceries delivered.
Unless HelloFresh wants to make it right.
Unless they want to continue to have 3 meals a week for 2 weeks for $16, and I'm all about it.
Come up with the right price.
I'm like,
be right. I mean by the right price, I mean sponsor the show.
Give us 6 months, and we're gonna be doing like, what did we have for dinner last night, Robert?
Exactly.
Oh, thanks for reminding me. We had a delicious black bean and poblano quesadilla.
Oh my god, this is
how easy. Robert, how easy was that to make?
It was just an amazing service that I think everybody should take advantage of. If you just go to our website and just click sell out.
I'm sorry. Are we Pod
upset.
Save America now? Like what is happening?
I'm upset right now because this doesn't feel like you're joking. It feels like rehearsal.
Just type in the word comrade for your 20% discount.
Hashtag full communism.
I'm a champagne socialist.
Nah, it was fine.
Let's be real about it.
It was super fine.
That's like my favorite thing. I'm gonna not lie about it and say that I did used to really like Pod Save America, like for a minute.
I'm glad I got you off of that.
And they do that. They would like really.
Isn't it funny because you listened
really
to our last episode where you went on Chapo, and I was like, at first when you like went in on Chapo Trap House, I was like, you're just not cool. You don't get it. And then I really listened to your critiques.
I'm literally so cool, and I definitely get it.
And then I listened to your critiques. I'm like, you're right. I'm like, I got to get off this shit too. Like I got you off Chapo. I mean,
you got me off Pod Save America.
You got me off Chapo, and I got you off Pod Save America, and then we both met at like Street Fight Radio.
Yeah, no, Street Fight. Yeah, we did meet at Street Fight Radio. I love Street Fight.
It's so funky.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No,
yeah,
but
Pod Save America's fucking
the thing
trash.
is like, okay, so one of the things about being a social worker is you have so much documentation that you have to do. So it's like the actual work of like actually helping people and the stuff I love to do. But you know, as we say in the biz, like if you didn't document it, did it really happen?
Right.
And like essentially that is, and like that makes me really mad because it's a capitalist idea of having to like justify my existence to insurance. Like the reason I spent this much time for people, but like it's also to, you know, if someone was to be suicidal, for instance, and something was to happen to them, you want to make sure like you were doing what you needed to do. Anyway, while I'm doing notes, I hate doing them so much that I have to be like focusing on something else so I can pretend I'm not doing notes.
Right.
But I can't focus on that other thing because I'm not actually like, I have to focus on the notes. So what I do is I put on things that I'm like vaguely interested in, but don't actually care if I miss. And so for a while it was Pod Save America because like they're actually like really stupid and don't have good takes on anything. But I was like, oh, I'm like vaguely interested in this. So I could like pretend I'm listening to it. But they got so annoying that I've moved on.
They love Obama so much.
They have bad takes. Like
remember when throwing shade? Remember when throwing shade was like a thing?
I like throwing shade.
Yeah, but when they went to the Resistance Hive after Trump got elected.
When we blow up, we're gonna have to delete this one. We're gonna be like, no, we loved you. Let's definitely collab.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What?
I'm sure they're gonna really help us out. I'm sure they're gonna make or break our podcasting career.
Whatever.
I could care less. But no, I agree with your take. Now do you understand my my love of Vaporwave? Because I listen to Vaporwave.
I already understood your love of Vaporwave.
Yeah, like I listen to Vaporwave at work to kind of be like, I'm not here. I'm somewhere else. Like,
Wait, what is Vaporwave for those who don't know?
Vaporwave is
It's old.
it's music. It's kind of a ironic / unironic form of music. So it's the whole idea, and I'm probably getting this music theory completely wrong, so just comment, send us an email and help me. But as I understand it, and the reason why I enjoy it is because it's made to sound like music that's in a mall. Annie's our cat, and she's going to turn on our Roomba at any second now.
Oh, she's definitely going to. That happened
gonna
at midnight
come
last
out.
night. It was
She's got
very
her foot
frightening.
she's got her foot right on the power button. I'm waiting for it to...
She just ate her pizza, and now
This
she's ready to
cat
clean.
is an agent of chaos.
She got to ride the Roomba.
Not to, as a quick aside, the reason she has come into our lives is that she
it's a good story.
broke into someone's apartment to have her kittens. So someone came home from like a long day at work, and there was just a random strange cat with a bunch of small cats. And so we got her, we adopted her, and
Was she one of the small ones?
no, she was the mom. So she was the one who did the physical breaking
Big mama.
into an apartment. And she will steal food straight out of your hand.
Yep.
She loves Doritos.
Doritos. Still loves them.
We love her. She's the best.
She's a
She
good
really
cat.
is. She is a survivor.
Good cat. Vaporwave. So it's made to sound like music that you would hear, like it's vaguely familiar if you grew up in the 80s, like you would hear in a shopping mall. And I know that
It literally is that music just chopped up and stretched.
not literally that music.
I feel like it started that way, but there's new.
Yeah,
Vaporwave
I mean,
coming
there's
out.
all kinds of like offshoots from it, or it is. Well, to your point, it is like I've heard it explained as white guy screw music. If you don't, oh my god, we're gonna go into the whole music thing. So if you don't know what screw music is, it was a genre of music, a subgenre of rap by a Houston DJ named DJ Screw, and he would take like popular rap songs and slow down the beats per minute, and it was made to drink promethazine cough syrup too, so you're like completely
AKA
like,
lean.
screwed up, aka lean. And Vaporwave, a lot of DJs do take popular songs and slow them. And,
I thought you were going to say they
quote
take
unquote
popular
chop them.
cough syrup.
So it's been described as like white guy DJ Screw music. And then if you were to go on YouTube and search Vaporwave, you'll see a lot of Vaporwave videos that have they're made up of like old commercials, a lot of like capitalist imagery, and I guess it's meant to symbolize, at least to me, like the promise of capitalism that never came. That never
It's
will.
juxtaposed against the sort
It's
of
the
like
promise
80s
that would.
background.
It's the promise that never came and never will come. Of like buying this product will cure all your ills and make you a happy person. But for just that brief little moment of like your fuzzy memories about Saturday morning cartoons, if you were like a Saturday morning cartoon, if you're old enough to remember that, and like your fuzzy memories of like getting things at Christmas if you were a kid, or just like commercials you would see, kind of like if you watch that movie, this is the spirit of Vaporwave. If you watch that movie Demolition Man from the 90s, and how everybody in the near future is obsessed with retrofuturism, they're obsessed. There's a whole station that plays nothing but commercial jingles because they give everybody joy feelings. That's a quote from the movie.
Yeah.
That is the soul of Vaporwave. So even though these
I
things
can never figure out the three seashells.
even though these things are fake, like buying things will never make you happy, but they do bring to the surface your real feelings and your real memories.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's a corporate product or not because it's real to you.
It's the promise juxtaposed with the reality.
Yes, of like a wasteland. So it's music playing in an empty dead mall
Right.
with all the shops are closed.
Which is my literal
That-
worst nightmare.
With like
Vaporwave.
hard like pink and hard like day glow colors
Right.
over these sort of like barren wastelands and gradients and grids. Yeah.
Correct.
Robert will watch
Dead mall
YouTube videos of dead malls, and they give me so much anxiety. I have to leave the room.
Back to Demolition Man.
We have so many dead malls here in Louisiana too.
That
Oh,
was
God.
such a police state in
it's
Demolition
awful.
Man that they were just like they lliterally had like a ticketing machine for when people would curse. Which I
Well-
feel like I should get a ticket every time I curse on the live radio.
See, I don't think though the problem with that movie is not that. I think it's a critique on you're like it's such a police state. It wasn't a critique on the police state. It was a critique. It was like a libertarian horseshit movie. It was Atlas Shrugged. because even that's the point of the movie. Even like the girl, Sandra Bullock's character is named Huxley.
Wait, Sandra Bullock was in Demolition Man?
Oh yeah, that was her first movie.
That was her first movie?
Is this the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No, you're close. You're close. Stallone. And also
the other 80s guy.
Wesley Snipes. So you're close enough.
I have literally no idea what you're talking about now.
It's all right. No, that was close enough. No, it's
Simon Phoenix.
It's a movie that it's a movie that critiques like this is what could happen if socialism takes over, if big government takes over.
Socialism though,
but that's the critique of the movie, dude.
The fancy restaurant was Taco Bell.
But dude, who's the hero? Who are the heroes in that movie? Tell me.
Wait.
Who are the heroes in the Demolition Man? And we're gonna tell you how it's a libertarian horseshit movie.
Well, I'm not saying it's not horseshit. I'm not saying it's not
it's critiquing like big government and critiquing. It's critiquing socialism.
But it's actually critiquing like a state, like a corporate run state.
But they're saying that the reason why, if you remember, you could play the damn thing on YouTube right now. The reason why is because crime was overdone. Like there was so much crime and all this disease and stuff, and so
they just threw all the people who did the quote unquote crimes underground.
Right, but the thing was that the government's plan was to eliminate all the naughty things that made people naughty. Now you can say because Cocteau was
like escape from New York, and
Cocteau was the big villain. Now he was a tech bro in that movie,
right?
But he also worked with the government. And I'm saying the history in that the hero of that movie, if you remember, is not even Stallone. It's
like Dennis Leary.
It's Dennis Leary. Because he's like, oh, remember when you used to cuss? And remember when we used to eat 2,000 calorie Big Macs? Yeah. And remember how when we were free? And like, no, that world was fucking garbage.
It's like an anarchist or whatever.
No, not even anarchist. That world that like is pined for. Like, I wish I could just get a frosty cold beer. Like, that world is fucking trash. Like that, the world.
I mean, frosty cold beers are good.
But that's how he sold that bullshit as. The world that the Dennis Leary character was aching for was the world that not Simon Phoenix, but the Stallone character got frozen out of.
John Spartan.
That was the world that he got left. It's really like a terrifying movie, actually.
We need to go back and watch it.
It's really not good.
Okay, so this could go on the bonus. We could put this on the Patreon feed. We can do an episode that's just a live, like a rundown of it.
One of the weird Easter eggs of that movie, which who was the guy? I want to say Peterson, the guy who killed his wife. Aaron, true crime.
Jordan Peterson. No,
yeah, Jordan Peterson killed his wife.
That's
Jordan Peterson
definitely
killed his wife.
All right, cool.
Scott Peterson?
I think that's right.
Peterson, Scott
Peterson. Yeah, I think that's right.
That's the correct.
Well, there's a scene where like the worst criminal of all time gets unfrozen from his cryo prison, which is obviously a black guy. It's got to be the worst criminal of all time.
Simon Phoenix.
And so he's like, "Oh, who else can we unfreeze? I want to unfreeze all the other bad guys." And he's got a list like on his little data pad, and it says Scott Peterson on there, and this is before Scott Peterson killed his wife. Woo!
I feel like Scott Peterson killed multiple wives.
I think you're right. I don't know that much about true crime. I'm not one of these people that's like,
I feel like I'm not a good woman that I don't know more about true crime, because apparently to be a woman means just watching like 4 hours of true crime.
Explain that to me.
A night. I don't know.
When I left, Kimberly was listening to a podcast of Dateline. So
I do enjoy some true crime, but my theory is that it's like women are like programmed to think that everybody's gonna murder us at every point, and so it's like cathartic to like learn how not to get murdered by looking at other people's mistakes. Is like my general assumption.
And then the final conclusion is that you can't do anything. You're just going to get murdered.
I mean, that's the thing. Like sometimes I feel like I don't quite fit in. Everyone's like, "Oh, did you watch Snapped?" Which I actually do love Snapped, because it's always like some woman snapping and murdering her husband, which like, yes, ladies. Yes.
So it's like Chicago.
Yes, it's very fabulous. No, but it's like true crime. It really is. It's such an interesting genre to me because it really is dominated by women. Like, I actually really do like My Favorite Murder is like a podcast I listen to sometimes. Like, there's just a lot of like very interesting things about it, but it's like I feel like Freud would have a lot of things to say.
He always had a lot of things to say, and it was all bullshit.
Was it though? It was. Spoiler alert.
I want to change gears since we're on the topic of crime. I want to talk about some crime, which I didn't. I felt like really I've been
guilty.
No, I've actually been really thinking about for the past week, and I haven't seen, besides like the day one headline of it happening, I haven't seen much about it at all. But I'll just read you I'm going to read you the story. USA Today, and this happened a couple days ago. I'm going to say like today Wednesday, maybe Monday. Florida officer who arrested 2 elementary school children, charges dropped. A resource officer in Florida, this was in Bradenton, Florida, was fired after he arrested two 6-year-olds on misdemeanor charges, officials say. Orlando, oh, never mind. I thought it was Bradenton.
6-year-olds. Two 6-year-olds arrested on misdemeanors.
2 children. Orlando Police Chief Orlando Rolone, that's his name, and Officer Dennis Turner failed to follow department policy that requires officers to obtain a approval from a commander before arresting minors younger than 12. Rolon also apologized to the children and their families involved. As a grandfather of 3 children less than 11 years old, this is a quote from him, "I can only imagine how traumatic this was for everyone involved," Rolon said. All Orlando police officers were sent a memo reminding them of the department policies concerning the arrest of children under 12 years old. And so here's some stuff from another story. I got more. But like, really quick. Wait, I got more, and you can get into it. So here's now what it didn't say is what happened, why the police were called to that school. Apparently this child, 6-year-old child, got into a physical altercation with another child also of the same age. So you've got 2 6-year-old children kicking and punching each other. And their teacher, the school administrators, the people who are supposed to be in charge of their safety and security and learning, thought it would be a good idea to call the police. Now, the end of the day, one of the people at the Juvenile Hall finally said, "Hey, why are there kids in here?" Now, you might be able to say, this guy got fired. And so it looks like everything worked the way it was supposed to.
After so many things that fucked up.
Right. Well, no. So many things didn't get fucked up. That's the point I'm going to get at. Why I've been thinking about this so much and why I'm so angry about it is because this is a complete indictment of the criminal justice system. When we talk about things like, what does fascism look like? We talk about things like a police state and the sorry state of our criminal justice system. This cop shows up. Let's just walk through the train. This cop shows up and goes, "Oh, there's 2 babies. These are babies, 6-year-old little children, having a fight. That's what happened here after the school called the police." And instead of going...
Which also shouldn't have happened.
That shouldn't have happened. So there's breakdown 1. So the cop goes, "Well, I guess I'll put handcuffs on fucking babies," which was what happened. Took the babies to Juvenile Hall. Took them out of the car. Perp walked them through Juvenile Hall. Through receiving. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a jail or watched a jail show or been to jail themselves. You've got receiving. There's a bunch of staff that work there.
Do they have that for juvie, though?
I'm sure they have to. They have to have somebody else there. Somebody's got to be there.
I've worked in an adult jail. I've never worked in a juvenile jail.
The same person that's arresting.
Not that I feel like this is okay. I feel like I'm like,
I know what you're saying. The same arresting officer.
Let's talk about process here, folks.
Yeah, I've never seen the end of it. I've never seen the insides of a juvenile hall either. But I've
actually been to a juvenile hall. I've just never
Okay, but the same person who arrests you is not booking you.
No, but so essentially how it's supposed to work in the juvenile justice system is like, okay, so there's correctional officers in adult systems, and then there's supposed to be like counselors in the juvenile. There's I'm trying to remember
They
what
serve the
they
same
the
purpose,
word.
though,
Yeah,
right?
no, they're essentially the same, but it's definitely a different focus. Like it's not disciplinary. This is supposed to be. You're here to guide the
Therapeutic.
children. You're here to keep them safe. It's like very different language when it comes to the actual.
The same
Like if you
shit.
look at if you look at a job posting for a job at the Orleans Parish Prison versus the Juvenile Justice Center, they're very different, even though they're the same. So that's why I'm like, again, this is like very pedantic, but I'm just curious.
But no, that's fine. So they took him to Juvenile Hall. Nobody says, what the fuck is a baby? What the fuck are two babies doing here? Then they get fingerprinted. The person who fingerprints them doesn't go, I'm not, what is going on here? I'm not fingerprinting baby. Like, I'm not doing this. And then they're being held there until finally, somewhere down the line, somebody said, what is this? A supervisor finally said, what is this? So this is how fascism happens. When everybody's
A lot of
just
good Germans.
doing their jobs, no one questions anything, and everybody just goes along with everything. And this is the system working as intended. And this is why we said this on the show before. Like, we can talk about critiques of like, are all cops bastards? Like, whatever. But this is exactly why people say this shit.
So let me just fill in, at least on the teacher end. Y'all know a lot more about the state end, at least as far as the carceral end, than I do. But there is a lot of, first off, when there's, as far as like official policy, like in schools, for how you're supposed to intervene in a fight, from the babies all the way down to the little tiny ones, up to the full size, adult, basically high school children. There's not any actual guidance as to what a teacher's role is in that situation. It's not provided, at least not in the parish that I work in, to kind of mitigate these situations. So what the lawyer for the union says to do is that you have to basically make sure that you're covering your butt and making sure that you
CYA,
Yeah.
cover your ass.
you don't do anything that'll get you in trouble. And while in a individual sense that makes sense, then the conclusion, I guess, potentially could logically become, well, I'm gonna call the cops on 2 6-year-olds, and then you're introducing people with guns into a school situation.
That is a full issue, though, with leadership. Because, okay, I work... Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you didn't feel that way, but, like, I work for a nonprofit, and I work with a lot of... Like, I work for Crisis, and we get what's called CPI training, crisis prevention.
I've been through that.
Yeah. And so, like, essentially the idea is that, like, you're supposed to be the professional and understand that this person, even if they're, like, coming at you, that they're not in their quote-unquote right mind.
Right.
And so CPI teaches you ways, okay, like if someone was to grab my hair. Yeah, it's like, how do you get out of that situation with causing the least amount of damage to the other? Yes,
de-escalation is a major element in those kinds of trainings. The holds are often like either defensive, they're stance oriented, or they're team driven.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So in most situations, it's not like one person doing one of these holds or whatever.
Well, so we don't learn holds because we don't do holds. But okay. When I've learned it, it's been like, okay, if someone's biting you, like, what do you do?
Right. Yeah. And there's definitely certain things, because you need to know how
which
the human
again
body
is
works
like
to defend yourself.
But like, to be honest, it makes me so angry because, like, going back to acab. Like, I'm a social worker. I am not a law enforcement agent. I did not sign up to be a social worker to put my own physical safety on the line. The idea that I have a higher responsibility to not harm, like, Louisiana is a stand your ground law state. So, like, essentially, if someone was attacking me, I could do, and that was what we were taught at the jail. We did not get CPI at the jail. I asked one of my bosses about it, and she said, this is what she said: Louisiana is a stand your ground state. Just get out of there. Whereas my current position, they say,
what do you mean,
they said, do what you need to do.
Like,
essentially, if someone is attacking you, do
Shoot 'em
what
in
you
the
need to do. Not like I obviously did not have a gun, but whereas my job now, it's remember that this person is, struggling with something and they're not attacking you because they feel some type of way about, whatever it is.
Right.
But so the idea that I, as a social worker, have more of a responsibility to not harm one of my clients than a police officer does, when I like don't have literally any, like if I have a client who, like, one of the holds they put you in to like try and get out of is being in a chokehold. I'm like, okay, if someone is choking me, apparently I'm supposed to like de-escalate the situation, which I agree with. Like, I do agree with. But the idea that like that is my responsibility, whereas like a cop can feel even slightly threatened and is like,
and kill him, yeah.
Either let's shoot you, let's tase you, let's put this 6-year-old in handcuffs. Like, why is this happening? Like, what is going on with our society? It's a
class above situation.
And I don't know. The thing that makes me the most angry about this story is that, I mean, it's a reflection on it. The fact that this story has gotten so much play is because the younger the child is, the more inherently sympathetic they are. Because essentially we tend to, especially children of color, but like the older they are, like a 14-year-old girl of color is considered an adult, a boy even more so. And so the fact that the only reason there's outrage right now is that these children were 6 years old. And I think like generally everyone accepts that 6-year-olds are actual children. But the reason like a girl came to mind is the idea that like, all this stuff with Jeffrey Epstein and like all like, it's like, oh, she's real fast.
What does the victim look like?
Yeah. What does the victim look like? It's like, oh, she's 14. She knows what she was doing. And it's this idea that like somehow we reach this like magical age and it's much younger for people of color than it is for white kids. And like, that somehow they are now like responsible for the things that people do to them. And it's like so frustrating. So it's like, this story is just like a terrible, terrible intersection of like everything I'm mad about right now.
And I would say also, if Karl Marx was sitting here next to us, he would say that this is what happens when capitalism alienates even government employees from their labor. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens. Yeah, they just feel like, oh, I've just got to do my thing because I've got so many more years left and I'm going to retire. And
I think I hear that all the time in the teaching profession, especially when it comes to these things that are school reform oriented. Specifically lately, there's a lot of like training stuff now, which is basically like brainwashing and re-education type stuff that they're trying to get teachers to do, and teachers comply because of the structural sort of like hierarchy within the situation. And these things have major impacts on how they teach. They have major impacts on the teacher's decision making in the classroom.
Well, what are these trainings that are like?
They're essentially saying that this is the curriculum that you're going to do, and the purported sort of reason for putting the trainings on is so that teachers would get buy-in, would buy into the sort of situation, and sort of be on this aligned curriculum across an entire school district, which is insane. And the whole point of it is essentially disciplining, like creating a line through which you can, like a narrow framework through which you can operate. And that sucks for even general education. I teach special education, so I'm supposed to be using these sort of like they call tier 1 curriculum. That is like this very specific like set with very specific books that have very specific lessons that are all packaged and ready for teachers to just pop it open and there you go, there it is. But the problem is that I have 4th and 5th graders that are being hammered over the head with this curriculum that are not readers, and there's no time, there's no way to work out the fact that these kids need, phonics and vocabulary work. It's all sort of like kept in like discipline line by teacher evaluations. If you're not doing what they say you're supposed to be doing, then you can get in trouble by not having a good observation score or not doing well on standardized tests. And it's an entire framework that's designed to take all of the power away from the teachers. And put
So
them in a precarious position.
are you essentially like saying, so specifically in this example, like this teacher calling the cops?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is directly related to this kind of top down, just like where everybody is watching everybody?
Yeah. Well, it's not even everybody's watching everybody. It's just like all of the blame of every one of these situations comes down on the individual. And when you have an individualist society or an individualist a strain of ideology within that society, which we definitely absolutely do, then the sort of powered structures that exist within the framework, in this case capitalism, can very easily lean on and burn any one of those individuals that when they're isolated in the way that they are. And the only power that any of them have in any situation is solidarity with one another, because that's the only thing that can beat this top-down authority.
I mean, that place, it's Juvenile Hall, so and just to go back to that story.
I'm talking schooling.
I know, but I just want to, my last bit I want to rant about on that story is that, again, that cop got fired. Okay, great, whatever.
What do you do? The next cop's going to do the same thing.
Right. If it was my police department, if I was police chief, if I was governor of Florida, if I was mayor of that city, I want that camera rolled back, and I want when those children were brought in, and I want everybody who saw them, I want their fucking jobs. I want everybody who saw them and did and said nothing.
That's actually also coming down on the individual, though. When the problem is the structures. So these people did these bad things because they didn't have a way. They felt they had no way out.
Of course, I mean that would be the thing.
That's the problem.
That would be the second part of my let's reform the fucking police two-step thing. Is one, I want the people who are too cowardly to go.
That's
No.
most people, though. That's most people, and they would only be the ones that experience it in this circumstance.
Yeah, and I do want to push back on the idea that someone is cowardly, because it's, I don't know, I'm like my little mental health perspective, but it's just, you make calculations about your actions based on survival. That's just we're mammals. And yeah, well, I don't.
Survival is not like trying to survive is not immoral.
Yes, and it can be, and it's tough. You have to live with yourself. But I remember when I was doing AmeriCorps, like I remember there was one of the schools I taught at, one of the teachers called the cops. Like she hit a kid and then she called the cops on the kid. It was like a whole thing.
That's fucked up.
But it's like, I'm looking back now and she still obviously made a very wrong choice. But there's like this idea, there's this mentality that teachers, like inner city school teachers, are somehow under siege
as an
and
individual.
That, like, yes, and that
but they are under siege as a group, but they're targeted as individuals.
Yeah, but there's also this idea that like kids in inner cities, black and brown kids, are somehow inherently harder. They're inherently more violent. They're inherently more adults than other kids. So there's this idea, and that's a pervasive idea in society. So a lot of teachers, especially because it's like the way teachers kind of like schools are run now. It's like not like you're not having teachers who went into the profession. You're having like professionals who decided they need a career change, or you're having like, it's not people who've been necessarily trained. And so they're going in thinking they're going to be like, they're going to be the
I'm going to do this for 5 years or 4 years or 3 years, and my student loans will not be something I'm
I'm going to come in and save the poor children. They just need someone who cares in them, as if there's no one in the community who like cares about these kids. And then they're shocked when they're dealing with children with trauma symptoms, because like essentially that's what it is. Like,
tell that to the 5,000 teachers that were fired in Orleans Parish after Hurricane Katrina, right?
Yeah. Everything about this makes me angry, because it's like a workers' rights issue. It's like a capitalism problem, but it's this idea that like we are criminalizing trauma, because children fight. Children will always fight, but children who are very violent children who are very sexual, children who are like anything that is like out of the ordinary are that way because of something that is going on in their life. It is a learned behavior. And so when you are like arresting a child for being violent or arresting a child for being sexual, you are essentially arresting them for the trauma that has been inflicted on them.
For being socialized in any specific way. It doesn't even have to necessarily be trauma. I mean, I would call it trauma, but I mean, you don't even have to put that label on it. They're being socialized in a specific way.
Yeah, I mean, they're being taught to do something.
That way is viewed as hostile to the way the education system or the perceived society is like a threat to that. Is essentially it is sort of viewed as in a sociological sense is like a asocial or antisocial behavior. Then, and these are children, not mine.
Yeah.
The way that they've been socialized either by their parents or by this localized culture or by the larger culture, whatever. If it's just a difference in cultures between the teacher and the culture of the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which happens when you bring in these teachers from,
if you have like
Megan
from Iowa and she's coming to teach at a charter school here in New Orleans and someone calls her baby, even though, I mean, that's just a thing. Like any other place other than New Orleans, someone calls me baby, my hackles are up. In New Orleans, I'm like, yes, great, I fit in. But it's like, that is one of the cultural things. And my feelings are deeper than my words, and then it's just upsetting.
So if I can, then I'll just kind of take the baton and also talk about what school, and I know I took this largely because this is where this is the framework through which I understand things, because it's the work that I do in education, but I understand that this is a school, like a direct school to prison pipeline situation. But on the education end, the question of what is education for is also sort of, if not central to this, then very closely adjacent, because there's a lot of language and emotion and feelings around the idea of, well, your education is your only way to a successful life, and if you're disruptive in school, you're taking education away from someone else. And education is sort of like this way out, this opportunity. So it gets put on this big old pedestal, and it's not viewed as a early socializing experience in any way that's not competitive, or that doesn't teach somebody how to not sort of like cut out the knees from someone else, right?
Yeah, which definitely is the framework
which creates which creates sociopaths. That is a sociopath factory.
Well, it's like this idea that like we talk about so much. Oh, America's got to keep up with STEM. We're not great at STEM. We got to keep up with STEM. Our sciences, our math, our technology, it's all bad. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, we do need to keep up with STEM. But what happens when like every child is like now super educated in STEM and nothing else? Like that's a problem too. And we just aren't.
Why do they want people to be good? Why do they want kids to be good in STEM?
Right.
Who wants people to be good in STEM?
Yeah.
Who drives education policy in America?
Betsy DeVos.
So the Gates Foundation.
Amway.
Well, that's the plan. They're
creating a workforce that is saturated with workers who already have these sort of specialized, who are like base level specialized in certain areas, or at least have a competency in these certain areas of STEM, so that it drives down the cost of professional labor.
Correct.
Or it drives down the cost of labor in general in that sort of field.
Well, there's this idea too.
That's the whole everybody should code bullshit. That's exactly what
and there's this idea in our society. Okay, it's like
that's the Yang Gang.
It's like every year, hashtag Yang Gang. I'm not Yang Gang, if that was not sarcastic enough. But there's this idea like that, because every year, there's a story on the local news, no matter what city you're in, a very feel good story about the teen who was homeless and went to the library every day after school and got a perfect 1600 or however much. I'm old. I don't know. What are the SATs now?
We do ACTs here. It's 36.
I don't know, it was 16 when I was a child, and I got a 1370. Did really great. Thanks. But got a perfect score in the SATs, got into every single Ivy League, like got scholarships to all of them, and everyone's like, see, look, meritocracy is real. And it's like, okay, that
person worked so much harder than everyone else.
I am not taking anything away. That person has worked harder than any person in the entire world. I know 100%. I am a smart person. I went to a good college. I succeeded. If I was in that same position, I would have failed because I do not have that kind of drive. I just don't. That's not my personality. That is a special, unique, wonderful, should probably be president individual. The majority of people, that kind of drive, that kind of effort is.
I'm skeptical of that kind of drive, sort of on its face.
No, I mean that's the survival mode.
Survival shit.
That person is
that's the absolute textbook definition of
survival is cool, but getting far above.
That's the textbook definition of Sun Tzu's death ground. That person understood they were on death ground. And they fought. Their back was against the sea,
right? And they shouldn't
fought
be dead
through
for sure.
And
but the sad thing about that idea, because I agree with that, but the idea is you either have to be you have to go to school and be a doctor, or you have to be you have to invent something to be successful. But if that person had gone from being homeless, all of the terrible things, and then became a city bus driver and was able to provide and had a family, that would not be considered necessarily a success story.
That's honest work.
But that is the success story.
That's the thing. That's to quote Notorious B.I.G. Seriously, I'm not being facetious. You're either slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. And the story that not even the sort of hypothetical we were talking about the other day, Aaron, I saw on that I think it was one of those morning shows about that doctor. He that was a feel-good story. The guy wanted to go to med school. He couldn't go to med school because he was too poor and had to take care of his family. He became a car mechanic, which a car mechanic is shit
work.
in my. It's more than honest work.
Literally so valuable.
We would have, if I was emperor of the United States, we would have parades for car mechanics. We would have ticker tape. It'd be it's car mechanic day. If you're a car mechanic, go to Golden Corral and get your free Golden Corral Robert Johnson emperor approved.
I mean, you might not believe now, but wait until you have to get a brake job.
Cut your head off.
No, but
just any other emperor.
Wait until your check engine light is on and you don't have more than $100 in your bank account.
So that man was doing God's work, for real. So, but anyway, he scraped and he saved, and he actually went to med school when he was in his 40s. He graduated now. He's 50, and he's a rookie doctor. Isn't that a great feel-good story? No, fuck that story. Because
I hate that story.
This is why
he wasn't worth shit until he was a doctor.
No, that's not it at all. You've got to be selfish about it. This is how I try to talk to people who are right wingers, or they're I'm not into socialism, or they're fuck nobody and not everybody should be able to college or whatever. I go, okay, this man is now a doctor and he's in his 50s. Life expectancy in the United States is 70 something. Okay, that guy's expertise as a doctor, because he could at 18 or even younger pass the test, went to medical school. We just refused to pay for it. That man's expertise was stolen from you.
But I guess
it was stolen from you. He could have been. How many lives could he have saved?
Okay, I agree with you. I agree with the underlying argument that you're making, but I also want to push back a little bit, because this idea that somehow a doctor is inherently better than a mechanic or more important. So yes, for it's sad for his life that if he had wanted to be a doctor the whole time and couldn't go strictly because of economic reasons, that's a sad story. But this idea that he could have been better than a mechanic,
no, that's
but
not
they
what
wouldn't let him
at all. What I'm saying is, I'm not making that argument to you. I'm making that argument when I make that argument, I'm making it to my mom's husband, or even my mom, and somebody who's who's a Trump voter. It's not
way to call out your mom.
I'm just saying, let's be serious.
Mom,
about it.
this is the call.
Let's be serious about it. I'm not saying that
I'm
argument.
I'm going to do a reply video on YouTube.
It is sad because we have empathy for people. It's sad that he had to wait this long to do his dream job. But that's not the argument I would make to those people. The argument I would make is, it's sad for you. It's sad because his expertise was stolen from you. Because we are all members of this society. His expertise as a doctor was stolen from society because of the gatekeeping that we've set up through capitalism.
Also, when it became a car mechanic, when it became a doctor, his car mechanic talent got taken away from society as well.
I mean,
and then he's a rookie doctor.
You're going right over what I'm saying.
No.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
No, I know. I understand what you're saying. And I understand that you're making this point, like, you're trying to, like, get people to have empathy. Which
no, I'm not trying to get them to have empathy. I'm trying to get them to be selfish for the right reasons. I'm trying to get them to see when they short-term screw people over, they're actually hurting themselves in our society.
I guess
it's the same argument I make where people go,
no, I agree with that.
It's the same argument I make when we talk. I literally had this argument with people, and I think you were there. I remember this was at a bar we were at, and somebody was talking about people at Walmart not making a living wage. And I go, well, okay, so people at Walmart they should just get another job or whatever. I go, okay, do you own stock in Walmart? And they'd be like, well, no, I don't. I'm like, no. I was like, well, do you pay taxes? And I'm like, they're like, yeah, even like, you pay taxes? Okay, great. Even sales tax. Okay, then you do own stock in Walmart. So the reason why I say that is because Walmart trains their employees just like other low-paying jobs. They train their employees how to go on government assistance. So you've got corporations that refuse to pay their people a living wage.
They pay them. They target how little they pay them to be enough so that they qualify for these programs.
Yes, and then they go on corporate assistance. So we, the American taxpayers, now have to make up the difference.
We subsidize
so now we are all shareholders in these companies and get no fucking return.
So you are completely right in everything that you're saying. The reason I'm pushing back on this argument, and again, the reason I'm pushing back on the idea that like we're losing out on his expertise as a doctor, is this idea that someone is only worth I understand you don't believe this,
right?
But making that argument, okay, we have to make the argument. Like we have to, if we have to shame people, we have to shame people. But people need to understand that these like quote unquote like low skilled workers or whatever we're calling like the most necessary people in society, that the only reason we care about them getting things is because it benefits us. That is just as dehumanizing as anything else. But they're not.
Those people that I'm talking about are not ready to hear that argument.
They are. They need to be shamed. Okay, and like again, if we're gonna be, you brought up your mom. Your mom is like a nice person. Your mom is like.
The reason why I bring them up is the stereotypical.
I understand that, but so this idea that like, this is the problem. This is the essence of the argument that we have about our politics in general. Like we've like argued about it a ton. It's this idea that Republicans or conservatives or Trump voters or even like centrists are just inherently unempathetic, or they inherently don't care about people, that they're only about their own interests.
That is my argument.
Is incorrect. They just don't, they're not aware of things. They
intentionally avoid context.
Yes. So it's this idea that they're intentionally avoiding things. So I just really don't agree with this idea that we need like for instance, criminal justice reform.
There's a spectrum there. So can I?
Yeah, of course.
Quick? So there's a spectrum there. There are people sort of like in the sort of like center to right wing milieu who are absolutely 100% cynical. And then there's sort of like a gradient to where there are people who are like lying to themselves and honestly, can not, see the sort of structures that are in place within society that are fucking over everybody, including themselves. So like the big sort of dividing line, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do the thing that Jeff always does. The big dividing line amongst the people who are the most cynical and the people who are the most honest is their class position.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. We are in a class war, whether we want to recognize it or not. And these people,
we always are, and we always
who we're talking about, like to get arguments across to, we're not gonna be able to appeal to their empathy when they're wiping their tears with $100 bills. When
do you interact with the quote unquote 1% though?
You don't, because they're not our class.
Yeah, because so these arguments are moot. Like, okay, so like, this is the thing. It's like we talk about the 1% and we talk about like, oh, we just need to make them understand that none of this is in their best interest, or like we got to get people to understand.
No. This is in the 1% interest. The 1%, their interest is to exploit the working class.
Yeah, but okay. So the people who are like talking about is that you're like, oh, we shouldn't be subsidizing Walmart. Those are not the 1% that you're making this argument to.
No.
But those are people who are they're depressed millionaires.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, don't play into that. Like, by telling them, like, oh, you need to support these things because essentially, like, that's your tax dollars because you deserve your money because you work so hard for it. Whereas those people don't deserve money. It's just that they're taking money from you. No, I'm not saying that, but that is the argument that you were essentially making when you're, instead of saying like, hey, they're human beings putting out work, they deserve to be able to live.
I'm a human being and I put out work too. Fuck them. So what do I do?
Well, here's the thing: is that like the thing that I think holds the working class together in these kinds of arguments is that they're working, they work hard, you work hard. The people who don't work hard, and this is the God's honest truth, the people who definitionally do not work hard, even though they'll say they'll work 100-hour weeks, are the people who are in the E-suites or the C-suites or whatever the fuck you want to call them. And they are the ones that are in control of the spreadsheets. They're the ones that are in control of the hiring and the firing. They're in control of where the investments go. And they're the ones that are in control of the politics.
This is all true. But you are like this idea. So, okay, when you're talking about like, oh, they work hard. Well, I said this. So like I put it in there. But this idea that like, okay, people deserve a living wage because they work really hard, or people like, oh, you're subsidized, like don't subsidize Walmart, whatever. It's this idea that like your deservingness, like you deserve to live only because of like what you're outputting. And which I know Jeff is shaking his head, but so that is, I think, what essentially this argument boils down to. Like when you're trying to like appeal, it's how I feel about the criminal justice. They're like, oh, criminal justice reform. It's like both like leftists, liberals, and just conservatives can all like come to a consensus because it's so expensive. And I'm like, when we are boiling down, the only reason why we're like it's problematic to like take a person and throw them away for 30 years is because it's too expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
That's absurd.
I deal with this like, I'm not saying you haven't met people, but just like try to remember, like get outside your bubble. Like I work with these people in Boondocks, Louisiana, who will talk about how like, oh, I just came up the other day and they're just like, oh, well, I had a bad experience at Arby's and these people think they would. These people think this is serious, and they go, these people think they're worth $15 an hour, and I go, well, you know, instead of trying to make the moral argument of like people deserve to live, you know what's a lot more effective to go, well, you know, if they made $15 an hour, even more than, or maybe even more than you're making, you know, that would give you more leverage because then you'd be able to say, fuck this, I can go work at Arby's.
So counterpoint, I work with people who are on Social Security, disability, food stamps, and housing programs, and I will be driving with them in my car and we will pass the homeless encampment and they'll say, isn't that a shame that those people just don't want to get housed?
See how it works though?
Mm-hmm.
But so that is because those arguments feed into that. You are essentially saying that the moment you exactly. Okay, so you want me to use the idea like, oh, those people are costing you money, so that's why you should care about them. When these people, like, it is this idea that someone who is struggling is somehow not worthy because if they had tried harder, they would not be struggling. That is like essentially the argument you're making. It's not the argument you are making. It's the argument that you're trying to.
Yes, you're right.
You are like feeding into
that is
with these other people.
I'm feeding into because I'm trying to do a propaganda jujitsu. I'm trying to use their own, and I hate to talk about people like they're sheep or automatons, but I'm trying to use their own brainwashing, their own like buy-in of propaganda against itself. And we had this discussion just between you and I. It's like as leftists, like we're so afraid to like use propaganda or even say the word propaganda. We need more propaganda.
Yeah, but
and we need
propaganda. We need to be able to. Okay, we need propaganda. Johnny agrees with me. He's really mad at you. Johnny's the love of my life. He's my dog. I love him. Anyway, we need propaganda and we do need to be more forceful, but we need to be shaming people for their views of other humans. Like if a person is like, oh, this like cool service industry worker, I'm going to yell at them. I'm going to go speak to them. I'm going to be an asshole. We don't need to like appeal to their like, oh, why is this beneficial for you? No, we need to shame them.
The shaming is only as effective. It's only as good as it is effective. So if shaming works in a specific situation that gets them to stop that behavior, then I suppose it's good. Now, if it perpetuates that behavior, then it's bad. So it like all I give a shit about is changing the view of this person, and I don't think I in most situations don't find that shame is the most effective approach.
It's not normally. But okay, so like let's take this argument that which I agree, like yeah, obviously like it's really we are subsidizing Walmart's ability to exist. Like that is a good argument. And for somebody who's like already a good faith person who maybe is just like, I don't really know, like I don't really understand. That's a fine argument. But that's what gives us the ability to lock up undocumented people in cages because they are not like, oh, well, yeah, our tax dollars are going to their services. So they shouldn't be here. So, okay, if you're saying essentially we don't want to subsidize Walmart because we don't like making sure that people who don't make a living wage get food stamps. How do you think that same person's going to feel when someone from another country gets here?
I have an argument for that. Like, I've literally used this argument. I go, well, okay, mister, I don't want people here from other countries illegally. I go, those people are working places. Those people are working in factories. I go, it's funny in these police raids, these ICE raids, where the guy who owns the factory, where's he being frog marched to jail?
Yeah, but what about
and it makes them go, wow, like I never thought about that.
Yeah, but what about the person who comes into the country undocumented, is a huge asshole and no one likes, and isn't working and is sitting in their house and playing video games all day?
That's a complete that's a completely manufactured person.
No, that's a real person.
But even if it is, I don't.
There are asshole
like sure.
I have asshole clients. Like there are like asshole rich people. There's asshole poor people. There's asshole people all over the place. And so essentially, when you are qualifying a person's right to have a living wage, when you're qualifying a person's right to have food or a right to have healthcare or a right to have anything else, you are qualifying that there are certain people who deserve to have those things and certain people that aren't. And so like if there are some people who don't deserve to have those things, then like
I've never seen in this country, I've never seen a moral argument work against the ruling class. It's only until the ruling class gets it's when the proletariat either
the ruling class
shuts
defines
shit down,
what morals are,
or they make it so difficult to actually for the actual machine of capitalism or whatever to function, and then things will stop.
The moral argument worked in the example you gave earlier tonight.
Like how?
So yes, 2 6-year-olds got arrested, but there was a huge uproar and that cop got fired. 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-years get arrested all the time.
They're just the scapegoat that's had the sins of our whole society.
No, because we have decided that 6-year-olds are deserving of our empathy,
right.
But 13, 14, 15-year-olds aren't.
But there's no call for structural change.
And this kind of comes, So if you're saying, well, the cop got fired, then all the stuff that happened before is fine and the system works.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that.
But you can make that argument very
easily.
Yeah,
but I'm saying that this scenario happens so frequently and no one gives a single shit. So the system
individuals get fired and nothing changes ever.
Well, yeah, no, nothing changed in that situation, but people like had outcry about it. And the only way that we can have this become a systemic change is if people have outcry whenever it happens and not just for specific individuals that they deem worthy of not being treated like shit by the system.
That is necessarily.
But this story is like, I guess this story is dead now because the cops have now fired and justice has been served and whatever.
Right. So like when Trump gets impeached because of Ukraine or whatever and nothing else happens, the system works.
Yeah, but I just don't understand how this argument that like you are trying to appeal to their like self-interest, how that helps anything.
I give you an example. It's okay, so when I think about like, okay, moral arguments, like one of the ones I think about, and tell me if I'm wrong, I'm getting off base. Like seriously. I think about Rosa Parks, right? Mm-hmm. So she wanted to ride in the back of the bus. She got arrested. That wasn't enough for people to be like, oh man, that's terrible. That little lady who just wanted, she was a young lady, but that woman who just wanted to go home from work, like got arrested because she didn't want to move to the back of the bus. What got capital to change is when black people said, fuck you, I'm not riding a bus.
Mass movement.
And it wasn't a moral argument.
Material.
It was hurt their material existence.
That's why strikes work.
That's why strikes get the goods.
I feel like
That's
we're talking about very different things.
That could
because I don't disagree with anything you just said. Like strikes work, like fucking with people's capital works. But if you're making a purely capital argument about why things should happen, then
that's what I'm like, appealing. When I'm appealing to that type of person that we're talking about with the Walmart argument or whatever, that's why, ironically, I say that, like Wall Street and big business, oil companies, the government itself fights so hard against the Bernie Sanders, where honestly a Bernie Sanders is in their best interest.
No, it's not.
Well, no, because it's, okay, you're rolling the dice. You're rolling the dice and you're saying that, we've had this discussion before. I said, you can have a Bernie Sanders and there's going to be a reign in of capitalism, but it's not going to be a revolution in the streets. We all know that. Anybody who thinks that is fooling themselves. Or you can roll the dice and say that we're going to go with a centrist dude who's going to do all our bidding and we're going to keep everything status quo, no bumps in the road. That could very much happen, but you're rolling the dice and you're saying that there won't be a new French Revolution. You're taking a chance. But if they went with Bernie, they would lose some of their money, but they wouldn't have a chance to lose all of it.
Does
that make more sense?
Maybe feel like I'm not following you.
Maybe. I mean, I might be all over the place.
So the thing with Bernie, I think,
I just use an example. I don't want to go deep down into that.
It's different. Just because the kind of movement that he's been putting together has been such a mass-oriented movement that it's, I don't know, it feels a little bit different than, especially the cop situation that you were mentioning earlier, which didn't have a mass movement. There weren't people marching in the
I guess that's the way that I'm looking at like his campaign as far as,
and then, I guess,
let's say in a world that Bernie Sanders won and then he was fought tooth and nail like I would expect him to, and so we want Medicare for all, then we probably would
the only way to get anything is mass movement.
We'd probably would get single payer for sure. But with any of these other people, we're going to get nothing.
No. So the possibilities with the Sanders movement or the Sanders campaign, I suppose, is the possibility of mass movement being pushed forward, and that's the reason why leftists should get behind Bernie Sanders, not because of like, even though his policy positions are great, they have broad appeal to working class and they're better than anybody else by a million miles. But the fact that he literally openly walks these picket lines with striking workers in Harlan County and in Michigan and in Chicago. He was at the Chicago Teachers Union group the other day. He is literally agitating for a mass movement in the streets by workers, and that is his angle and that's his approach.
But to get back to what you were saying, Aaron, is that
I'm getting a feel.
I think our fundamental difference is that, and we talked about this on Tuesday, is that I do not think that people who are motivated, who think the system is working as intended, who still believe in a meritocracy, even though like every day you see this bullshit,
there's no such thing
that
as a meritocracy.
They are going to hear moral arguments and they're going to have any effect on them. And
they do. Because, and we've talked about this in other episodes, people respond to individual cases, as individuals. But so the argument that people don't have empathy for others is gone. It's that there's messaging that is incorrect. Like, okay, so it's the whole thing with immigration, right? It's like people are like, build that wall, keep them out. Undocumented are the worst. They're lazy, terrible, whatever. And they're like, oh, like Jose, my neighbor, no, he's been a hardworking family man for the past 25 years. Like, what do you mean you're coming for him? So that is like the in. That's the in.
Part of it.
So what do I do there? How do I get the person who's giving to somebody's random GoFundMe campaign but doesn't believe that Medicare for all should be a thing?
You talk to them the same way. Okay, so if you're trying to appeal to them on a level of like, oh, this is in your economic best interest to do this, then you're already having a conversation with an individual. Just appeal to their humanity. And I understand that it's harder. You can do both, but my worry is that like it feels very neoliberal to pin this the idea of like social justice. What?
Materialism is neoliberal?
No, I know what she's going to say. Go ahead, finish.
Well, just the idea that we're pinning a human being's worth on their ability to serve like your economic best interest.
No, I know what you're saying, and that is terrible. The way I'm looking at it is I'm playing on the chess field that's already laid down. And I'm not trying to create, it's going to take me longer, and I don't have time to try to create a new game to move to get
But
people
what
to play.
happens when we get to a $15 minimum wage and people are like, okay, cool, that's fine. We don't have to do anything else.
Well, they're already doing that with that's the whole.
That's a problem.
That's the tech bro gang approach. That's the UBI.
Well, yeah, but like, why? Okay, this is on Tuesday we talked about the cynicism of like other podcasts and like other ways of thinking, and like this is it. Why do anything if it's just going to lead to more things? So it's like, well, why not just try? Okay, so you're saying like why? Okay, like yeah, but like. If you do that thing, then what happens when this thing happens? I'm like, I don't know. We tackle it when it comes. It's like, why are we not doing things because they're correct?
We should be.
Instead of just doing things that we think are like, again, it's like this idea. Like,
so, okay. So I guess the question that comes to mind is like, what's the order of operations here? Like, what is the first domino that you can sort of knock down to kind of get the workers movement going, or the mass movement, the broader working class pushing towards itself, advocating for itself?
It's to make them understand that they are not as well off as they feel like. It's the idea to introduce. It's education. It is this idea that like it is not the entitled workers at Walmart who want a $15 minimum wage, they're making it harder for you to buy groceries. That is not their fault. It's this idea that like that's the first thing. It's education. People literally don't know. They do not understand how the reason voter participation is so low in this country is because people do not have a good conception on how they have an actual say in what happens, or that how participation works, or how even that like what happens at city council, how does that directly affect your life?
Yeah,
more people would turn out for local elections if they understood that like a 6-4 vote might mean that your property tax goes up.
Right. And it's a big dragging down of things into, and this is something that is particularly prevalent now, but there's a lot of pedantry and like propaganda in terms of numbers and facts and spreadsheets, and this professional provides that testimony in favor of this policy or whatever, which that is sort of the stuff that gets you to swallow the bullshit policies that fuck us over left and right. They're hiding it in sort of this fancy pants language. This happens in education all the time. They'll have a fucking study that says, oh, this research, never cited research, it's just research, says that you need to do that you need to have a tier 1 curriculum, and you need to do these specific components for teacher evaluation, and this is what gets results. That's what kids moving forward on our standardized test results. So they've hidden the actual agenda of what they're trying to do, which is to disempower workers, to widgetify children, and sort of put them in this basically very hard-tracked curriculum, and profit off of it all the while because they're selling all these, brand new programs. And they're selling it with, like I say, with the, in the trappings of the professionalized language.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like as leftists, like we really need to not fall into that trap.
Well, we need to talk to people where they're at, and which is what I think appeals to that actually hits on a material and an emotional level.
We need to meet people where they're at, but we also need to remember that okay, Walmart workers are the working class.
Yes, totally.
Attorneys
100%.
are the working class. Doctors are the working class.
Depends on the attorney, depends on the doctor.
100%. But essentially, it's this idea that I think a lot of times when we are talking about working class in this country, we are conceptualizing it blue collar versus white collar. And somehow white collar is considered to be not the working class and part of the 1%. And very few people who are in the white collar professions are actually, I'm in a white collar profession. Mm-hmm. I am not the 1%.
No, neither am I.
Yeah. So there's this idea. So when you're saying and your mom and your stepdad, I don't know their finances, but I would hazard to guess that they're maybe 1%, but close to the 1%, but probably not quite in. So when you're using arguments about how helping kind of the quote unquote lower class people is better for their bottom line, that's a division. So we can't talk about class divide and class consciousness when we're
okay, so if we're talking about people,
their workers,
we're talking about them,
yes.
And we're talking about people in Ohio, and when I in my mind I think about voters in the Midwest, and
I never think
the
about
person who those guys and gals,
liberal elites,
pals who voted for Obama, they voted for Bush in the Midwest, then they voted for Obama because they wanted material change in their life, didn't come, then they voted for Trump
because he promised
material change. So how do you want me to give those people a moral argument where it's obvious, timed, history tested, they want material change?
You have to get them to understand that material change for another group of people is a net benefit to them as well, and not in that same
we ain't got that
way.
Kind of time.
Okay. So this is the thing that I've been talking about with Warren, incrementalism. You ain't got that kind of time. You want the biggest bang for your buck right now, right? You're not in it for the long term. You're in it for a good, for the long term.
Oh, I'm in it forever.
No, I'm in it for the long term because in 11 years, is it 11 years now? Global warming,
2030.
Climate change is locked in, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it.
Okay, but so
instead of saying, hey guys, let's clean up the environment so we can all live together peacefully and happily on Mother Earth, I'm going to say, you're going to fucking die. Because this is what the science says.
Oh my God, but this is literally not the argument you were making. That is the argument.
That's a material argument.
Yes, but
this is how it benefits you because it stops your kids from having to wear 2,000 proof sunblock.
Yes, but that is an argument about their own personal actual benefit. That's not dividing the class. The idea that you're saying, oh, it's worse for your taxes to help the poor, so you better make sure these corporations.
Worse?
Okay, so this is argument.
It's better for your taxes.
Okay, so yeah, okay. This idea, the argument that when Walmart doesn't pay their workers a living wage, you get taxed more because there's more people on food stamps and there's more people who need to be on disability and all these other things, is essentially saying the only reason that you should care about whether companies pay their workers a living wage is because that takes money out of your pocket. So let's say the government decides that we're cutting food stamps and we're cutting welfare and we're cutting all the Medicaid. So that's no longer money coming out of your pocket. That was the only argument that you were making to why workers deserve a living wage, essentially these people no longer care. So yes, short term in the way the system works now, maybe that's an effective argument. They are constantly trying to get rid of Medicaid. They're constantly trying to get rid of like food stamps and cut them. Like, so the idea, you need to make people understand that, hey, this person is just trying to get by just like you. And they deserve to get by just like you deserve to get by. That is a better argument. And so it's so frustrating to me to hear. It's so frustrating. Like,
You know,
The
I don't
left is
agree.
like-
I don't disagree with anything you just said.
no, I know, but
All
it's this idea that like pragmatism is like viewed. There's certain things that are considered pragmatist on the left, and then other things that are considered like like you're setting aside your values. Like, again, it's like the Warren Bernie thing. Like I honestly, at this point, I'm like, I definitely am a Bernie supporter, but like, I don't understand why pragmatism in supporting Warren is like bad on the left right now.
Wait a minute, isn't that's like the opposite of the argument you're making? Like that's the flip. Wait a minute, you lost me, because aren't you saying that if we're only worried about, you're saying that somehow Warren is a pragmatist, so that's why
I'm
that's
saying
bad?
no. I'm saying that I will have you have leftists like yourself on one hand saying, "Oh, appeal to their economic best interests, appeal to this, appeal to like these base
I'm not
interests."
saying that's it. I'm
But then
saying
on the
that
same side,
Right.
saying, "Oh no, we have to be ideologically pure on this."
I'm
other
not saying
thing.
that's it. I'm saying that gets them in the door.
Yeah, but in
can we
a
meet it there? Because I'm saying that gets you in the door, and then I can like do things like I can talk to you about. Okay, now I can introduce you to stuff like Reverend Barber and Moral Monday.
but again, how is that any different from like Warren versus Bernie?
That's the least important
kinda
thing,
lost there.
honestly. The
honest.
Warren versus Bernie thing and all of this is not that
No,
important.
Yeah.
because Robert just said, okay, he said, okay, the pragmatist argument at least gets people in the door.
Right.
Right.
So, okay, but like a person who went from a centrist, like who's now a Warren supporter, at least
They're
like
moving in the right
marginally.
direction. That's good.
because those people will stop there.
Not necessarily.
So
It
you're
depends
saying,
on-
okay,
it
you're saying
depends
that
on-
those people will stop there, but the other people you're talking to and making this argument about will somehow be shown the light of progressivism. Like, what
mean,
are you
people
talking about?
People who are Sanders people, or
No, the people that you were making this pragmatist argument
those people are on
to.
the right. Those people are right. I'm trying to pull them to the center, but I don't want them to stop there.
this
Those-
left, center,
those
right
are right
stuff.
wingers I'm talking to.
Anyway,
These are not.
this conversation can go on all night. I wanted to drop in some pretty awesome news that I read just a moment ago. Breaking news as of Thursday night, 94% of Chicago Teachers Union teachers have voted to go on strike.
Yay.
And I think it's going to begin sometime next month. So workers, man, they're so powerful. Incredible.
Woo.
They're so strong.
Woo.
You got to love
Yay,
it.
workers.
Yay. Well,
Let it be said that again, we are coming out as firmly pro worker on this podcast. Firmly pro.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can listen to us every Tuesday on WHIVLP New Orleans. You can also check out our website, goodmorningcomrade.com. You can listen to us on WHIVFM.org/good-morning-comrade. You can also check out us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like, subscribe, and listen.
And
And
if
smash
you
that
donate
Patreon button.
$100 a month,
What?
you can personally suggest a topic that will make Robert and I get into a fight.
All right, $69 a month. How about that?
Nope.
And
It's
for
$100 or bust. We will fight
$420 a month.
something. So just suggest it. It could be Disney related. We can get into a fight about that. We could just extended Bernie Warren. Anyways, send us that money and we will.
We'll have a PayPal
we'll get into
link.
it.
We don't expect anybody to give $100 a month on Patreon.
No, if
I
we
do.
can
We'll
do
have a
$100.
PayPal link.
So But my
Jeff
first,
Bezos?
my first goal,
What it do?
my first goal is to get to $69 a month. That's how we're gonna get started.
I'll fend on you if you.
Whoa!
I was listening to some street fight.
All right, love you. Bye.
Bye.